Hey guys, tonight we slip quietly beneath the palace floors, where dust never quite settles and time pretends not to move. The air down here is cool enough to prickle your arms, and the walls close in like they've been waiting centuries just for you. You probably won't survive this if you're afraid of shadows that breathe a little too slowly, but you're here anyway, so that's on you. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you feel like sharing, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is over there. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge further down the narrow passage, boots echoing against stones so old it predates the modern monarchy. The lantern in your hand flickers, dramatically of course, because lanterns always know when you're trying to look brave. The moonlight overhead shrinks into a thin memory as the stairs spiral deeper, wrapping you in the hush of a place designed to be forgotten. The vault door appears long before you expect it. A slab of iron framed by carved lions, each lion looking slightly offended, as if they were promised a better assignment centuries ago. A thin layer of frost coats the hinges, even though this palace sits nowhere near a climate that produces frost. Historians still argue whether the chill is simply due to airflow or whether the jewels themselves generate it, like moody celebrities demanding the room stay below 18 degrees Celsius. You run your fingers along the indentations, tally marks of rulers who once dared come here but never returned with what they sought. One mainstream historical fact circles your mind. Medieval vault doors were intentionally over-engineered, not just for protection, but to amplify fear. If a monarch wanted a young heir to rethink rebellion, they brought them down here for a quick, motivational talk. Nothing says please behave like a large metal door that might eat you. You inhale, place your palm on the central sigil, and push. The vault sighs, not creaks, not groans, sighs like it's tired of warning people off. Inside, the moonlit beam through a carved ceiling grate lands exactly on the center pedestal, because of course it does. Palaces loved dramatic lighting before electricity ever existed. Dust motes drift lazily, performing their usual ballet, and you feel a faint static buzz along your arm as if something recognizes you. Not in a romantic way, more like a smoke detector that senses you're about to cook. Jewel cases line the chamber walls, each sealed with transparent crystal lids etched with runes. A quirky tidbit comes back to you. Some vaults once used crocodile dung paste as a surprisingly effective anti-tamper coating. This vault thankfully chose a more elegant method, though remembering that fact does slightly ruin your appetite for polished stones. Your lantern glows brighter as you approach the center pedestal. There it sits, your first forbidden treasure. The moonlit vault opening whispered about in old court diaries written by hand-wrinkled scribes who definitely exaggerated for dramatic flair, but were also too terrified to lie. The centerpiece isn't a jewel yet, not exactly. It's a carved stone bowl filled with shimmering silver dust, not unlike ground mica, but somehow alive with movement. It swirls gently, forming small spirals that flatten and then reappear. You crouch closer, and the silver mist rises as if curious about you, brushing against your cheek like cold breath. You mutter something to yourself, maybe a joke to break the tension. You're not sure the vault appreciates humor, but it doesn't retaliate, which is a good sign. You reach out, expecting the dust to puff away, but it gathers beneath your fingertips, swirling in tighter patterns until it shapes itself into the rough silhouette of a necklace. Then, as if embarrassed by its own theatrics, it collapses back into dust. You blink. The vault has a sense of humor. Great, another place smarter than you. A second carving catches your attention, a small inscription hidden at the bowl's base. The characters are archaic, winding like vines, but you can make out enough to interpret the warning. Let the vault choose the order, not the visitor. A shiver runs through you. This room doesn't just store jewels, it decides who gets to see which one. You remember the outline you glimpsed in the Royal Archive months ago, 12 treasures, each tied to a story the monarchy tried to bury. Some were too politically charged, some too spiritually unsettling, some simply too heavy to wear without risking neck injury, which honestly seems like the most realistic concern here. Your lantern flares again, illuminating the nearest case. A faint hum vibrates through the floor. You freeze, half expecting a ghostly hand on your shoulder, but the vibration steadies like the room settling into the idea of your presence. Then, softly, one lid unlatches itself. You don't touch anything, you swear you don't, but the jewel case opens anyway, acknowledging you with a whisper-like click. The vault has chosen the first piece. You step closer, your heartbeat tapping a soft rhythm against your sternum. Shadows stretch across the case, and for a moment you wonder if the lions on the door have turned their heads. The palace is old enough to play tricks like that. Castles love being dramatic side characters. Inside the first case lies a cluster of emeralds, dark as forest canopies after rain. The stones pulse faintly as though lit from deep within. Not glowing like neon signs, no, that would be too easy. More like the glow of someone thinking very hard in your direction. You reach toward it, stopping just before contact. The air around the emeralds thickens, humming with anticipation, almost approval, almost warning. Historians still debate whether this cluster belonged to a queen who used it to test loyalty, or to a noblewoman rumoured to have switched sides more often than a malfunctioning weather vane. The emeralds wait, you swallow, the vault breathes, and behind you the door closes, not loudly, but with the soft finality of a story beginning. You're no longer just exploring, you're being guided. The dust bowl at the centre pedestal stirs again, sending a small spiral twirling toward the next jewel case, hinting at the sequence the vault has chosen for you. Soon you'll face the cursed cluster properly, but for now, the vault wants you to understand the rules. You're not in control down here, not even remotely. Still, you straighten your back, lantern in hand, and step toward the emeralds. If you're going to survive this, emotionally, physically, or stylishly, you'll need to play along. The air settles, your heartbeat steadies, the vault watches, and you move forward. You inch toward the open case, lantern swaying gently in your grasp, its warm glow brushing over the emeralds like hesitant fingertips. The vault's air grows thicker, a little warmer, as though the stones themselves exhale. You don't love that idea, but here we are. The emerald cluster rests on dark velvet, each gem sharp-edged yet impossibly smooth, carved into a shape that resembles overlapping leaves. You reach out, not touching, just hovering, and the stones brighten by a fraction, as though greeting you, or sizing you up. Hard to tell with semi-sentient jewelry. The legends whisper that this cluster once belonged to a queen, famed for her ability to inspire fierce devotion. One mainstream historical fact confirms that emeralds were believed to strengthen loyalty and soothe tempers in medieval courts. This queen supposedly needed both. Rumour says she had a habit of throwing tiny, banquet-sized tantrums when her advisors annoyed her, which, to be fair, seemed to happen hourly. The emeralds were her counterweight. Wear them, breathe deeply, pretend your court isn't plotting 8 different coups before lunch. You examine the way the stones are arranged. The central emerald gleams more intensely than the others, its hue deeper, richer, almost storm cloud green. A quirky tidbit worms into your mind. Emerald miners in the 16th century sometimes claimed the stones grew annoyed when touched by the wrong hands. Some swore they cracked in protest. Others blamed humidity. Historians still argue whether this superstition had any merit or whether the miners were simply bored and underpaid, which, honestly, is probably the safer bet, though you can't help side-eyeing the emerald cluster now. Your breath catches when the cluster shifts. Not much, just a tiny tilt, like someone nudging a bowl along a table. You blink hard. Jewel clusters don't move. They absolutely don't reposition themselves like they're clearing their throat for attention. You lean closer. A soft vibration ripples through the velvet. You mutter, "Nope, not today." That's your first joke quota for the section, though the vault doesn't seem to appreciate it. The air pulses once, unimpressed. Still you gather yourself and allow your fingers to hover just a bit closer. The stones radiate a faint warmth now. You weren't expecting that down here in the subterranean gloom, where the temperature sits somewhere between winter crypt and haunted pantry. But the emerald cluster seems almost alive. A little needy, even, like it's been waiting for centuries with the patience of a librarian forced to endure generations of noisy school field trips. When you finally let your fingertips brush the nearest gem, the warmth sharpens. The emerald's glow expands, touching your wrist, then receding. Not hostile, just curious. You breathe through the sudden prickle in your chest. Then the whisper comes, a tiny, nearly inaudible click, 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 like beetle wings brushing stone. The emeralds shift again, realigning themselves by a hair's breadth, and the temperature in the vault drops, then rises, then steadies. The cluster tests you. It judges whether loyalty is something you carry or something you stash in a drawer with overdue receipts. Historians still argue whether this jewel was actually enchanted, or whether the queen who wore it simply cultivated an aura of intimidation so intense that people imagined the stones reacting. But the diaries of a certain shaken court attendant describe watching the cluster pulse like a heart when she scolded the council. Diaries never lie, except when they do, but this one had unusually detailed handwriting, which somehow makes the claim feel a little more credible. You slide your fingers around the edges of the velvet cushion. Beneath the emeralds you find small etchings carved into the base. You can't read all of them. Some are worn thin by time, but one phrase stands out. Hold and choose wisely whom you trust. You laugh softly under your breath. Thanks, very helpful. The jewels don't respond. Typical. As you lift the cluster, it's lighter than expected, almost buoyant. The gems catch the lantern light and scatter it across the vault walls, casting green ripples like underwater reflections. You turn slightly and the reflections shift into shapes, faces perhaps, or the outlines of former wearers. Hard to say. The vault plays its favorite game again, ambiguity mixed with mild discomfort. You straighten your shoulders and try to wear the cluster. You lift it toward your collarbone, guiding the clasp behind your neck. But before you fully secure it, the emeralds flare sharply, not aggressively, just decisively, and the clasp snaps shut of its own accord. Your shoulders jolt. Okay, rude, you whisper. Second joke allocated. The emerald's warmth pours down your chest, sinking into your ribs. You exhale, and for an instant, every anxious thought presses flat, silenced by a heavy, calming weight. This queen truly understood the allure of emotional regulation. Jewel edition. You almost feel steadier, more grounded. And then, because of course, something shifts behind you. A faint echo, maybe, a rustle of stone against stone. You spin toward the vault door, half expecting a royal guard ghost doing rounds. Nothing. Just the lions, still mildly offended that they guard a vault instead of a ballroom. You rub your thumb along the central emerald. The glow dims, then steadies. The vault acknowledges your handling of the first piece. The dust bowl in the chamber center swirls once in approval, scattering silver spirals across the floor that twinkle like frost crystals. The emerald cluster pulses one last time, not a warning, not a threat, more like a gentle, "Okay, you passed, step one, don't get cocky." Then the cluster unclasps itself. It slips from your fingers, floats momentarily, only a breath's length, before settling back into its velvet cradle within the case. The lid closes softly on its own, trial complete. You glance toward the next case, where a faint sapphire glow hums behind crystal, calling you forward like a quiet, guilty conscience. You inhale deeply. The emerald's warmth lingers in your chest, a temporary reminder that courage isn't loud or perfect. It's just the willingness to keep going even when your jewelry judges you. You grip your lantern tighter, recentering yourself. 1 treasure down, 11 to go. And the vault, thrilled by your progress, subtly shifts the air currents, nudging you toward the sapphire that waits patiently in its shadowed corner. You move toward the blue glow, pulsing softly from the far corner, your lantern painting warm gold across cold stone. Each step echoes a little too long, like the vault is repeating your footsteps back to you, as if it wants to be part of the conversation. The sapphire waits behind a crystal lid, etched with delicate spirals. The light within it isn't constant. It brightens, dims, and brightens again, almost in time with your breathing. You try not to find that creepy, but the vault has its own vibe, and your comfort level is not really its priority. You pause in front of the case. The air sharpens. The sapphire glows brighter. This jewel looks different from the emerald cluster, less like a royal ornament and more like something a confessor might hold in trembling hands. Its blue is darker at the center and pale around the edges, as though it has spent centuries absorbing words people were too afraid to say out loud. You lift your lantern slightly, and the sapphire flickers, throwing faint blue shadows against the wall like ripples on deep water. A mainstream historical fact drifts into your thoughts. Several medieval queens used gemstones as symbolic tools during private audiences. Rubies for courage, pearls for purity, and sapphires, particularly dark ones, for truth. Monarchs believed sapphires could feel dishonesty. This brooch, the sapphire that heard confessions, was said to have hung over the heart of a queen who insisted her ministers meet her gaze while it gleamed between them. Intimidating? Absolutely. Effective? Probably, considering nobody dared blink around her. You lean closer. The sapphire is set in a brooch of filigreed gold, thin lines curling like vines, forming a cage around the gem, yet never touching its surface. It seems suspended in air, held by nothing but stubbornness and ancient craftsmanship. A quirky tidbit tickles the back of your mind. Some palace archivists once claimed the brooch hummed when visitors entered the throne room. Others said it hummed only when liars entered. Historians still argue whether the humming existed at all or whether the attendants were just exhausted from carrying layered gowns that weighed as much as medium-sized livestock. Your fingertips brush the case, and the crystal lid unlatches with a whisper-light sigh. You hesitate, bracing for another dramatic jewel judgment session like the emeralds gave you. But the sapphire stays calm. Its glow remains steady, steady enough to seem patient. You almost feel rude making it wait. You reach for the brooch, and the gold filigree shifts beneath your fingers. Not enough to startle you, just enough to remind you that nothing in this vault enjoys being handled casually. You lift the brooch, its weight surprising you, heavier than it looks, heavy like a secret that overstayed its welcome. You inhale, and for a moment you swear the gem grows warmer in your palm. Then you hear it, a faint murmur, soft, breath-like. You lean in, thinking maybe your lantern is doing something unhelpfully spooky. But no, the sapphire is whispering, not words, just sound. A low vibration, a sigh that flutters through your fingers and into your bones. It feels like pressure on your chest. Not painful, just insistent. Like someone is urging you to say something you've been avoiding for a long time. Absolutely not, you mutter, joking for the first time this round. We're not doing confessions tonight. The blue light flickers, unimpressed. The whisper deepens, swirling upward like smoke curling beneath your ribs. You steady yourself, lifting your chin. You don't have anything dramatic to confess, not unless the vault cares about the time you borrowed someone's snack from the fridge and blame the cat, which in fairness, the cat totally got blamed for anyway. Still, the sapphire continues humming, waiting for something. The air thickens. You feel pressure rising in your throat, not painful but persistent, like the jewel wants to be sure you're being honest with yourself, which is arguably ruder than any haunted behavior so far. Historians still argue whether this brooch was tied to an early form of royal psychological testing or whether the Queen simply enjoyed watching her ministers squirm. The former is plausible, the latter is extremely plausible. You can almost imagine her leaning back on her throne, resting her chin on her hand, murmuring, "Go on, tell the truth, the jewel will know." Monarchy really does run on dramatic flair. You hold the brooch close to your chest, mimicking the way a queen might have worn it. The sapphire's glow expands, flooding your sternum with soft blue light. It's soothing, almost hypnotic. You feel your shoulders loosen, your heartbeat settling into a calmer rhythm. For a moment, the vault fades, the cold stone, the echoing chamber, the eerie silence. It's just you and the blue warmth expanding like breath. Then the whisper grows sharper. Not louder, just more focused, directed, pointed. It nudges a memory you buried so neatly you forgot it had edges. You tense, and the brooch reacts, its gold filigree warming against your skin. This jewel wants truth, not for punishment, not for spectacle, but for release. It pulls forward the things you've shoved behind stronger thoughts, the quiet disappointments, the held-back words, the things you told yourself didn't matter but apparently do. The sapphire waits. You exhale slowly, and you let one small truth slip through your thoughts. Nothing earth-shattering, nothing dramatic, just honest. The whisper softens, the pressure eases, the brooch warms to a gentle, approving glow. You lower it from your chest. The blue light dims, returning to its steady pulse. The sapphire has heard what it needed, though you didn't exactly say it out loud. Maybe that's enough. Maybe the jewel just needed acknowledgement, like those plants people talk to so they won't die dramatically on the windowsill. With ceremony you absolutely did not practice beforehand. You return the brooch to its velvet cradle. The case closes itself, the runes on its lid glowing faint blue before settling back into stillness. You step back, rubbing your palms together, grounding yourself again. 2 jewels down, 11 to go, easy. A totally casual midnight stroll through sentient royal artifacts. You turn slightly, and the dust bowl at the chamber's centre stirs again, tossing silver spirals toward the next case, one lined with pale shells, a soft luminescence like moonlit sea foam shimmering beneath the crystal lid. The pearls harvested from storm wrecks wait for you. And for the first time tonight, the vault's air smells faintly, impossibly, of salt. You tighten your grip on the lantern and move forward. You follow the faint smell of salt the way someone in a dream follows distant music, slowly, cautiously, half wondering whether your brain is filling in sensory blanks that should not logically exist in a sealed underground chamber. Your lantern's circle of light stretches across the floor, catching the subtle shimmer ahead. The next case glows softly, not with the warm green of emeralds or the cool pulse of sapphire, but with a pearly luminescence, like moonlight reflecting on quiet waves. The pearls harvested from storm wrecks. You stop a few feet away because something in the vault air shifts again. A small breeze brushes the side of your face. A breeze. Down here, where airflow should be as dead as leftover royal edicts. You resist the urge to glance up and check for non-existent vents. The pearl case sits on a pedestal carved with twisting shapes that resemble ropes or tentacles, depending on how generous your imagination is feeling. The crystal lid shows faint streaks as though touched by seawater. When you're close enough to reach out, the pearls inside shift slightly, glowing with a dim, ghostly gleam. The legend of these pearls is unhelpful. Some say they came from oysters clinging to shipwrecks lost in violent storms. Others whisper that they formed from the last breath of nobles who drowned at sea, trapped forever in nacre. A mainstream historical fact offers something saner. In the 17th century, sailors believed pearls carried the spirits of the drowned, and royal collectors often prized them for the drama alone. You know, standard monarchy hobbies. But these pearls feel different, older, hungrier. You place your palm on the lid. It unlatches with a damp-sounding click, and a bead of condensation slides along the crystal edge. You lean closer, peering into the dim shimmer. There are 7 pearls, all irregular in shape, each one slightly oblong or crescent-curved, as though shaped by currents rather than careful artisans. Their surfaces glisten faintly, not polished, smooth, but textured like ridged shells. A soft, rhythmic hum vibrates from the case, rising and falling in long, slow waves. You joke under your breath, "If a tiny kraken pops out, I'm leaving." That's your first humour checkpoint. The vault remains stoic. You lift the largest pearl, expecting cold weight. Instead, it's warm, oddly warm, like it's been held in someone's palm moments ago. A pulse thrums faintly beneath your fingers. Your chest tightens, just enough to make you swallow hard. The hum changes pitch, aligning with your breathing like the jewel equivalent of a clingy pet. Historians still argue whether these pearls were part of a mourning set worn by a queen who lost her husband at sea, or whether they were simply exotic curiosities twisted into ghost stories by later generations craving drama. Court records from the period are strangely vague. Some mention ocean lament jewels, while others insist no such pieces existed. Palace archivists hate inconsistencies like this. You can almost imagine one of them twitching at the thought. You lift the pearl closer to your ear. It hums. Not a whisper this time, not words, but a sound like the ebbing tide, slow and drawn out. It washes through you, brushing old memories awake. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the sound settle. Your shoulders soften, your breathing slows. Then a faint crackle interrupts the calm. You open your eyes. The remaining pearls shift in their cradle, not rolling, not hopping, just pivoting slightly so they all face you, like little glowing eyes. You try to convince yourself you're imagining it, but the vault doesn't do imaginary. The vault does deeply inconvenient confirmations. You lift a second pearl. This one shivers in your palm, vibrating like a plucked string. The hum deepens, the air thickens, the smell of salt intensifies, drifting like mist from an unseen shoreline. And suddenly, a wave crashes. Not physically, thank everything holy, but the sound roars through the vault, loud enough to make you flinch, echoing off stone, rolling over your skin before it fades into silence. Your lantern flickers violently. Your heart trips into a sprint. "Okay, that's unnecessary," you mutter, second humour quota. "You can send me a postcard next time." The pearls glow brighter, then dim in unison. Their hum steadies again, soft as before. as though they just needed to remind you of their origin, wherever or whatever that may be. You lower both pearls back into the case, resting them gently in the velvet cradle. The moment your fingers leave them, the luminescence fades. The pearls settle into motionlessness, innocent once more. But as you reach to close the lid, something inside flickers, a tiny shape, just a blur in the corner of your vision. You freeze, you lean closer. It's faint, almost imperceptible, but the surface of one pearl seems to hold the outline of a face. Not detailed, not fully formed, just the impression of grief carved in light. You blink hard. When you look again, it's gone. Historians still argue whether these jewels truly held any supernatural imprint, or whether the tragic stories surrounding them caused hallucinations among anxious courtiers. But right now, beneath the vault's breath and the lingering echo of ocean waves, you're not entirely unconvinced. You close the case gently. The lid seals itself with a soft suction sound. The pearls dim to a pale ghost glow. The dust bowl in the center stirs again, swirling silver spirals that drift toward the unexplored side of the chamber. The air changes, losing its salt tang, growing warmer, deeper. A faint red gleam pulses against the wall. The ruby of unwanted coronations is waking. You straighten up, lantern trembling slightly in your hand. You wipe the moisture from your brow, unsure whether it's condensation or nerves pretending to be heroic sweat. 3 jewels down, 9 to go. You're officially in too deep to pretend this is casual treasure browsing. You take one steadying breath and step toward the ruby's growing glow. You follow the rising glow, warm, red, pulsing softly like the vault itself has a heartbeat now. The air thickens with each step, not unpleasant, just heavier, as though the chamber wants to remind you that stories wrapped around rubies rarely end calmly. Your lantern feels dim compared to the jewel's glow spilling across the floor in wide, tremoring arcs. The ruby of unwanted coronations waits on a square pedestal carved from black stone. The case around it is simpler than the others. No swirling patterns, no ocean-slick textures, just a thick crystal lid etched with a single crown. The crown's lines tilt slightly, almost crooked, which feels like a bad omen, or a gossipy detail someone forgot to straighten before the coronation photos were taken. You approach slowly, breath steadying. The ruby's glow intensifies. This jewel isn't a cluster or a brooch. It's a circlet, a thin band of wrought gold holding a jewel so large it borders on impractical. Honestly, if someone sneezed wearing it, they might pull a neck muscle. Yet the circlet is undeniably beautiful. The ruby at its center is deep red, nearly black at the edges, catching the lantern's light and devouring it before tossing it back out in muted flashes. A mainstream historical fact floats to mind. Rubies were traditionally associated with sovereignty in many cultures, symbolizing authority and the burden of rule. But this particular ruby held a different reputation. It was tied to monarchs who never wanted the throne at all, those shoved into power by politics, lineage, or the bad habit of being the only living relative with a pulse. Rumor says every unwilling ruler who wore this crown suffered a brief moment of clarity so intense they nearly abdicated on the spot. You place your hand on the case. It unlatches smoothly but doesn't open yet. It waits, as if asking whether you really want to do this. You sigh. Honestly, no one ever wants to wear red this close to their face. But here we are, your first humor checkpoint. The lid lifts itself once you commit to the gesture of leaning down. The ruby circlet glows brighter, lighting your hands in an eerie cranberry blush. It feels warm when you lift it. Not sapphire warm, not comforting. More like the warmth of a long sigh, the breath of someone who has resigned themselves to something they never wanted. You hold the circlet at eye level. It pulses, soft, slow, heavy, with expectation. Historians still argue whether the ruby's reputation came from its wearer's reluctant personalities or whether the circlet actually influenced their emotions. Some say the jewel absorbed anxiety and radiated it back. Others claim it forced clarity, stripping away the illusions of royal glamour and showing the harsh reality of leadership. A few eccentric scholars suggest the ruby was crafted from a mineral found near volcanic vents, where ancient artisans believed trapped spirits whispered warnings. You're not thrilled with any of these explanations. You hesitate. The circlet seems to tilt in your hands. You swear it's nudging itself toward your head. Nope, we're not doing self-crowning today, you whisper. Second humor checkpoint. The ruby glows brighter anyway. You lift the circlet cautiously and lower it toward your forehead. The gold band hovers just above your skin, because instead of settling gently, it hovers, as in refuses to touch you. Like even the jewel thinks you should think twice. You lower it a little more, still hovering. You exhale in disbelief. The circlet pulses, rejecting you, not angrily, just firmly, like a polite but unwavering gatekeeper. You try again, guiding it with both hands. A faint rumble echoes through the vault. Your pulse stutters. The ruby flashes, then it clamps down. Not hard, just decisively. The circlet seals around your head with a soft metallic click that echoes far louder than it should. A sudden pressure sweeps across your temples, not painful, but full of weight of expectation, of responsibility, of choices you haven't made yet. Images flicker through your mind, crowds, torches, a throne room with too many mirrors, footsteps approaching from behind. And that quiet, dreadful feeling of being called to something you didn't ask for. Your breath shudders. The ruby responds with a warm throb. You steady yourself, planting your feet firmly on the stone floor. The circlet presses lightly against your skin, a reminder that, unwilling or not, someone in the past wore this jewel in a moment where duty outweighed desire. A memory surfaces, one queen who famously tried to run away rather than accept the crown. A quirky tidbit says she disguised herself as a maid and attempted to flee on horseback at dawn, stopping only because her horse refused to cooperate. True story or royal embellishment? Hard to say, but her diary mentions a ruby circlet weighing on her mind long before it ever touched her brow. The pressure peaks, then releases, the ruby dims, the circlet loosens, and softly, almost apologetically, it lifts itself off your head. You catch it, hand shaking only slightly. The jewel's glow retreats into a quiet ember, satisfied. You set it back into its velvet cradle. The case closes with a gentle click, and the crown etching on the lid glows momentarily before fading. You step back, letting out a breath you didn't realize you were holding. The air in the vault shifts lighter. For the first time tonight, you feel the space comfort you, a rare courtesy. But the dust bowl at the chamber center stirs again, swirling silver mist toward a case bathed in flickering warm tones. A necklace rests within, flames seeming to dance beneath its opal surface. The opal whispers in candlelight awaits, a faint murmur, a hush like fabric brushing stone, echoes behind you. You turn, not knowing whether it's the vault settling or something watching. 5 jewels down, 7 to go, nothing ahead promises to be simple. Lantern high, breath steady, you walk toward the candlelit flicker, ready, or pretending to be. You step toward the opal-lit corner, lantern trembling ever so slightly despite your best attempt at appearing heroic. The warm colors flicker across the stone walls, reds, oranges, soft golds, like the afterglow of a candlelit vigil. The vault's air changes again, shifting from the ruby's heavy warmth to something lighter, almost buzzing. It prickles along your arms as though tiny sparks are leaping across your skin. You don't love that sensation, but you've come too far to pretend you're here for a casual jewelry viewing. The opal whispers in candlelight rests on a pedestal carved with swirling motifs resembling dancing flames. The crystal lid holds a faint amber tint, and beneath it, the opal necklace glows like embers beneath a thin layer of ash. Soft pulses of light ripple through it, each color blending into the next with mesmerizing slowness. You pause a moment, feeling the jewel's attention. Yes, attention turned toward you. The opal brightens. Your lantern dims in response like it's embarrassed. A mainstream historical fact drifts into your mind. Opals were once believed to contain captured fire, capable of revealing secrets when illuminated by candlelight. Queens used them during nighttime councils to gauge the sincerity or recklessness of advisors. The flickering reflection supposedly revealed more than words ever did. This opal, though, carries an added legend. It whispers warnings only when danger creeps close. You can't decide whether that's reassuring or deeply concerning in a room full of sentient jewels. You place your palm against the lid. It unlatches with a soft exhale, more theatrical than necessary, but the vault enjoys drama. When you lift it, warm air rises from inside, brushing against your face like a candle's breath. The necklace is delicate, silver links woven around an oval opal the size of a large almond. The stone's colors swirl in slow cycles, wine red, pale peach, glimmering gold, then back again. But beneath the shifting hues, you sense movement, as if something inside the gem is turning over in its sleep. You lift the necklace. It is warm, very warm, like the gemstone remembers long nights beneath candlelight, absorbing heat and secrets both whispered and withheld. You murmur, "Okay, if you start telling me bedtime stories, we're switching roles tonight." First, humor checkpoint. The opal glows brighter in response, as though acknowledging the joke with mild amusement. Or warning, hard to tell. You bring the necklace closer to your ear, partly out of curiosity and partly because you're a little too deep into this vault to act rationally. You listen. At first, nothing, just the hum of the chamber and your own breathing. Then, a faint, delicate whisper. Not words, not language. Just a soft, rhythmic brush, like fingertips against paper, or a flame flickering as someone approaches it. Goosebumps rise along your arms. Historians still argue whether opals were ever used as divination tools or whether later generations projected mystical qualities onto them because they looked like bottled sunsets. Some scholars believe this particular necklace belonged to a monarch known for her uncanny intuition, able to sense betrayals before they unfolded. Others claim the opal only whispered because her palace had terrible insulation and the wind seeped through the cracks at night. You touch the opal with your thumb, tracing its smooth surface. The colors shift faster, pulsing in tight rings like ripples in molten glass. The whisper grows clearer now, still meaningless sounds, but sharper, more urgent, like a warning that doesn't know how to shape itself into words. Suddenly the lantern flame shivers. The light bends sideways as though something unseen walked past you. Your breath freezes in your throat. The opal flashes bright gold. You turn your head, slowly, too slowly, but see nothing in the vault. Just shadows shifting against the stone, dizzy with opal light. Your heart stumbles, but you force your breath steady. "Don't do that," you whisper to the jewel. Second humor checkpoint. The opal's glow softens, almost apologetic. You slip the necklace around your throat. The clasp closes on its own, because of course it does, and warmth, spills across your collarbones. The opal rests just above your sternum, pulsing in gentle rhythms that match your heartbeat. The whispers rise again, forming soft crescendos that ebb as quickly as they swell. You close your eyes. The vault's air grows warmer, and suddenly you see something, not with your eyes, with your mind. A woman sitting alone in a candle-lit chamber, her back straight, her hands folded. The opal rests at her throat, glowing softly as she listens to two advisors who both shift nervously at her calm expression. Candlelight dances across their faces. One speaks with rehearsed confidence. The other stumbles over words, glancing at the windows as though fearing something in the dark. The opal flares, the queen tenses, then nods, choosing. The image fades, your eyes open. You feel a strange sorrow, fleeting, not yours, before the warmth drains gently from your chest, leaving behind a quiet stillness. The necklace unclasps itself and floats toward your waiting hands, as though relieved to return to its rest. You place it back into its velvet cradle. The lid lowers, the amber tint fades, the pedestal settles. You step away, humming softly under your breath to settle your nerves. That was intense, not frightening exactly, but intimate, like overhearing a secret meant only for candlelit walls. Then the vault stirs again. The dust bowl in the center spins violently before sending silver spirals toward a darkened case engraved with starbursts. Light glints faintly through the crystal, sharp, cold, brilliant. Diamonds, but not ordinary ones. Diamonds cut from fallen stars. You clutch your lantern, shoulders bracing. 6 jewels down, 6 remain. Perfect symmetry, terrible comfort. You step toward the starlit case, ready for the chill ahead. You walk toward the dim starburst engravings, feeling the air shift colder with each step. The warmth of the opal drifts away from your skin, replaced by a crisp, metallic chill that tastes faintly like winter breath. Your lantern flame shrinks, not flickering, just politely stepping aside, because whatever glitters ahead insists on being the brightest thing in the room. The case sits higher than the others, as if elevated by the vault itself. The stone pedestal beneath it is carved into jagged facets, imitating a cut gem. The crystal lid is so clear it practically disappears, leaving the jewels inside looking suspended in air. Diamonds, irregular in shape, sharp-edged, shining with a pale radiance that isn't quite natural. Diamonds cut from fallen stars. You swallow. Not because you're scared. No, definitely not that. But because the diamonds pulse with a cold glow that reminds you of starlight reflected on untouched frost. It's both beautiful and deeply unsettling, like being complimented by someone who never blinks. A mainstream historical fact surfaces. Ancient cultures often believed diamonds came from meteorites, their brilliance attributed to celestial origins. But these particular diamonds were discovered centuries ago in a crater near a royal hunting lodge. Court documents describe them as fragments of night that refused to dim. Overly dramatic? Yes, but judging by the glow, only slightly. You rest your palm on the lid. It doesn't unlatch. It shimmers. Silver filaments spread across the crystal surface, tracing constellations you almost recognize but can't quite name. The vault lets you admire the designs a few seconds before the lid releases with a faint chime, a note so pure and high it almost hurts. Inside, the diamonds lie scattered on a bed of deep velvet. Not neatly arranged, not set in a crown or necklace, just loose pieces as though they resist being tamed into ornamentation. The largest one hums softly, sending tiny vibrations through the pedestal. You pick it up cautiously. Cold, freezing cold, rushes through your fingers. You gasp and almost drop it. "Okay, freeze a gem," you whisper, shaking your hand. "Boundaries, please." First humor checkpoint. The diamond pulse slows. A dim spark flickers at its core. You're not entirely sure if it's annoyed or amused. You lift the gem closer to your lantern. The flame bends toward it, not sideways, not wildly, but toward it, pulled slightly like a moth drawn to something equally luminous. The gem's edges refract the light into thin beams that scatter across the vault, forming fleeting star patterns on the walls before dissolving into nothing. Historians still argue whether these diamonds truly came from a meteor impact or whether the royal miners fabricated a celestial origin story to justify hoarding stones that glowed unnervingly in darkness. Some scholars claim the gems shift their internal structure when held, subtly rearranging facets. Others insist that's nonsense, though those same scholars refuse to spend more than 30 seconds touching one. You hold the diamond a bit longer. The cold deepens. Your breath fogs visibly. A whisper, not a voice, just the suggestion of one, threads through the air. You tense. The vault has whispered before, but this sound is different, softer, distant, almost cosmic. Like the echo of something enormous speaking from very, very far away. You look down. The diamond has begun to glow brighter. "Please don't explode," you murmur. "I already dealt with emotional sapphire therapy tonight." Second humor checkpoint. The diamond pulses again, gentler this time, as if validating your suffering. You feel the cold seep deeper into your palm until the sensation spreads through your wrist. Then something unexpected happens. Your mind floods with images. Black sky, streaks of fire, a stone hurtling downward surrounded by light so bright it tears through silence, heat, a booming shockwave rolling over a forest, and the quiet aftermath, smoke rising beneath a sky already forgetting what fell through it. You stumble slightly, gripping the pedestal for balance. The diamond dims immediately, its glow shrinking into a tiny ember. The cold withdraws from your hand like a tide, pulling back. You let out a long breath. Right, that was cinematic. The vault hums, deeply satisfied. You place the diamond back in its velvet cradle. The remaining pieces shift slightly, aligning themselves into a new pattern, one resembling a constellation you don't recognize. The lid lowers the moment your hand retreats, sealing the jewels beneath a soft frost-like sheen. A faint wind, yes, wind again, brushes your cheek. The vault's air stirs in spiraling motions, guiding your lantern's light toward a quieter corner. The brightness of the diamonds fades, allowing your eyes to adjust to deeper shadows. And there, waiting beneath a carved arch of blackened wood, is the next case. The gemstones of secret widows. The case is darker than any you've approached so far. The crystal lid is tinted smoky grey, and the jewels inside don't glow, they absorb light. Just looking at them feels like staring into the hollow of an unsaid truth. 7 jewels down, 5 to go, you steady yourself. You shift your lantern higher. And with one last look at the fading star patterns behind you, you walk toward the jet-black diadem shaped by hands who understood grief too well. You walk toward the darkened arch, lantern trembling just slightly as its flame tries, unsuccessfully, to illuminate the pitch-black case ahead. The air cools again, but not with the crispness of the diamond chamber. No, this cold is different, heavy, still, like the quiet inside a locked room after someone has finished weeping there. The gemstones of secret widows wait on a pedestal carved from fossilized wood, the grain twisting like frozen smoke. The case above it is nearly opaque, tinted deep grey, swallowing most of your lantern's glow. Only when you get close, very close, does the crystal reveal what's inside. A diadem, black as shadow, carved from jetstone, polished until it gleams like spilled ink. You stand before it, the vault falling entirely silent. Even the faint hums from the dust bowl and the lingering echoes from the diamonds fade into stillness. The quiet feels intentional, respectful. A boundary you didn't know you needed. You murmur, "Okay, we're being serious now." First humor checkpoint, soft, but it counts. When you place your palm on the case, there's no dramatic flare of magic, no shimmering filaments, no gust of air. The lid simply unlatches, quietly, gently, as though it were holding its breath for you. Inside, the diadem curves like a crescent moon forged from midnight itself. Jetstones, solidified remnants of ancient trees, form its structure. Each stone is carved with intricate lines that twist into symbols you half recognize from mourning tapestries. The surface gleams with a subtle luster that reflects your face, but only faintly, like a memory someone is trying not to forget. A mainstream historical fact floats to mind. Jet was commonly used in Victorian mourning jewellery, prized for its deep black sheen and its macabre symbolism. But this diadem predates that era by centuries, crafted for queens whose grief was politically inconvenient. Women who lost husbands, children or allies but were expected to smile for court banquets 3 days later. This was their rebellion, quiet, elegant, terrifying in its honesty. You lift the diadem carefully. It is lighter than you expect, too light, as if someone had carved away every burden except the emotional ones. The moment it leaves the cradle, a faint vibration spreads through your fingertips, not humming, not pulsing. Something subtler, like the echo of a breath held too long. The diadem warms slightly, a contrast to its midnight appearance, reminding you that jetstone is organic, born from pressure and time, not from fire or stars. Unexpectedly, a scent rises, wood smoke, soft, familiar, the kind of scent that clings to old letters stored in carved boxes. You lift the diadem closer, studying its carved symbols. Some represent tears, some represent loyalty. Some represent the quiet alliances widows formed with one another at court, networks of whispered advice and coded support. And then there are the symbols you don't recognize at all. Maybe no one alive does. Historians still argue whether this diadem was worn by a single widow or passed secretly between many, each leaving a carved mark after a moment of private grief. Some researchers even claim the piece changed shape, depending on who wore it, tightening to comfort, loosening to release. But scholars disagree on nearly everything about it, partly because royal records mention it only obliquely, as if afraid to draw the palace's attention to something so raw. You hold the diadem at your forehead. It doesn't resist, it doesn't hover, it simply waits. When you place it gently across your brow, it settles without the slightest pressure, light as a shadow falling across your skin. For a moment, nothing happens. You breathe, the vault breathes, the lantern crackles softly. Then, images, not sharp like the diamond's meteor memory, not vivid like the opal's candlelit visions, softer, blurry like impressions painted in fog. A woman standing in a window alcove at dawn, her hands clasped tightly. Another gripping a sealed letter, as though it might vanish. Another smoothing the empty side of a bed before rising. Another whispering into embroideries she later gifted to her daughters. Grief. Shared, hidden, enduring. You feel your throat tighten unexpectedly. The diadem presses gently, not painfully, but with the soft insistence of a hand placed on your shoulder. A reminder that sorrow, when carried alone, becomes sharp, but when shared, even in silence, becomes bearable. Your breath trembles. You close your eyes for one steady inhale. The diadem warms at your temples, understanding. Then, just as softly as it settled, it releases. It lifts from your brow, weightless, as if carried by someone you can't see. You catch it carefully, fingers steady this time. You lower it back into its cradle. The lid seals with a muted click, respectful as a folded letter placed into an old box. You step back, the air around you warmer now, softened. You realize your lantern flame has steadied, burning taller than before, as if the vault itself wants to offer you a moment of brightness after the quiet ache of the gemstones. But the moment doesn't last. A ripple of light explodes from the dust bowl at the chamber center, silver swirling so rapidly it nearly becomes white. The spirals race toward the next pedestal, where two identical stones glimmer faintly behind a crystal lid, the mirror twin amethysts. You exhale, gently, gratefully. Then gather yourself once more, 8 jewels down, 4 to go, and the amethyst's glow already hints at judgment. Lantern high, heart steady, you move toward the twin lights waiting to reflect you back at yourself. You walk toward the faint, violet glow, noticing immediately that it feels different. Not warm like the opal, not cold like the diamonds, not heavy like the gemstones. The air around the pedestal hums with a subtle static, like the moment before a storm breaks when the clouds decide whether to behave. The mirror twin amethysts rest beneath a crystal lid carved with 2 interlocking spirals. The lid's surface distorts the light in unpredictable ways, making the twin stones appear closer, then farther, then closer again. It's disorienting. You blink twice just to reassure yourself your eyes are still attached and functioning. The vault quiets again as you step forward. A pulse of violet radiates outward. Your lantern flame leans slightly toward the pedestal, curious but cautious. Inside the case sit 2 amethysts of identical size and cut, arranged side by side atop a bed of deep plum velvet. At first glance they appear perfectly symmetrical. Their surfaces gleam with soft purple hues, each stone catching the lantern's glow in a slightly different pattern. But then, one shifts. Just a millimeter, barely noticeable, but enough to catch your breath. You murmur, "Great, twins that move independently, what could go wrong?" First, humor checkpoint. The stones pulse in unison, as if amused. A mainstream historical fact surfaces. Amethyst was long believed to protect against deceit and clouded judgment, helping rulers maintain clarity, even sobriety. But these 2 stones carried an even stranger legend. Known as the mirror twins, they were said to show not who you are, but who you might have become under slightly different circumstances. Advisors once used them to test a monarch's integrity or ego, depending on the day. You place your palm against the case. The lid unlatches instantly. No hesitation, no dramatic pause, almost like the stones have been waiting specifically for you. You lift the lid. The chamber hum rises, a near-silent note that somehow vibrates in your teeth. You lean closer, and both stones brighten, soft violet merging into a shimmering pale blue at their edges. You reach for the left amethyst first. Warm, surprisingly warm. When you hold it up to your face, the surface shifts like rippling water. Your reflection appears, soft, undefined, then sharpens. But something's off. Your posture is different. Your expression is bolder. Your eyes hold a certainty you didn't realize you lacked. It's you, but a version who never second-guesses a thing. You inhale sharply. The stone flickers. Historians still argue whether these visions were real insights or psychological tricks invoked by court pressure. Some scholars claim the mirror twins simply reflected a person's idealized self. Others insist they revealed potential paths, choices not taken, words not spoken, courage not claimed. The left stone pulses again. Your reflection shifts slightly, a version of you who stepped boldly into something you hesitated over in your real life. Even though the vault is silent, the message feels loud. You lower the left stone, breath shaky, then lift the right. Cold, not painfully so, just enough to prickle your palm. This stone darkens as you raise it, deep purple swirling into muted grey. You see your reflection again, but now your posture is guarded, your shoulders curve inward, your expression is cautious, tired in a way that feels deeply familiar. A you shaped by small fears repeated countless times, a you who avoids storms instead of learning to navigate them. You swallow. The stone pulses once, softly, not accusing, just honest. You exhale and lower the stone, your heart beating faster now. The two amethysts rest together in your hands, warm and cold, balancing each other. You feel their weight, not heavy but undeniably present, like choices pressing gently on your palms. Then, unexpectedly, they shift. The warm amethyst brightens. The cold one dims. Both vibrate just enough to make your fingers tingle. And then, in a move you are absolutely not prepared for, the stones rise from your hands, levitating a few inches above your palms. The vault surges. Violet light blooms outward, shimmering across the chamber like ripples in a cosmic pond. Hey, no, gravity is a suggestion, not a lifestyle, you whisper, half panicked. Second humor checkpoint. The stones twirl gently like dancers switching partners. When they settle, they align themselves perfectly, warm on the right, cold on the left. You can't help noticing that the order is reversed from how you first picked them up. A quiet message. Possibility shifts depending on the order in which you meet yourself. You inhale as the stones lower themselves onto the velvet cradle. They nestle into place, edges touching, forming a perfect mirrored silhouette. The lid closes on its own. The etchings glow once, then fade into stillness. You step back slowly, chest tight, breath unsteady. The mirror twins didn't judge you the way some jewels did. They simply showed you angles of yourself you didn't realize were missing or waiting. Before you can fully gather your thoughts, the dust bowl at the center of the chamber stirs violently. Silver particles swirl, rising higher than before, almost forming the shape of a crown before collapsing. The spirals drift toward the far wall, where a massive pedestal sits shrouded in darkness. A crown rests there, huge, heavy, ornate, the crown without a wearer. Your lantern dims as though bowing in advance. You straighten your shoulders. 10 jewels down, 2 remain. This one feels different already. Less like a trial. More like a decision waiting for you to fail or surprise it. You step forward, deeper into shadow, toward a crown that has never accepted a single monarch. Not yet. You approach the shadowed pedestal with a kind of steady caution that feels less like bravery and more like the emotional equivalent of tiptoeing past a sleeping dragon. The vault's air grows heavier with each step, dense, expectant, as though the chamber itself is holding its breath. Your lantern flickers in protest, its flame shrinking into a trembling bead of gold. You tighten your grip. The crown, without a wearer, waits atop the tallest pedestal you've encountered yet. Its presence is immediate, immense, almost gravitational. Even from several paces away you feel its pull, not physical, but psychological, like a spotlight waiting for someone to step into it. The crystal lid around it is completely transparent, unetched, polished to a mirror-like sheen. You can see your reflection staring back at you from the surface, small, distorted, a little terrified. The crown behind the glass towers over your reflection like a mountain of gold and regret. You step closer, the pedestal hums, the air tightens. The crown itself is enormous, far larger than practical coronation gear. Its gold surface gleams dimly beneath your lantern's waning light, carved with arcs, peaks, and runic symbols that twist downward like vines. Jewels line its rim, onyx, ruby, sapphire, amethyst, each one glowing faintly as if breathing on its own. But at the center, rising like a jagged flame, is an empty mount where a jewel should sit. You blink, a crown missing its heart. Maybe that's why it rejects every monarch. You murmur softly, "I get it. I wouldn't wear something unfinished either." First humor checkpoint. The vault rumbles, a low, almost amused vibration that fades quickly. A mainstream historical fact surfaces. Crowns throughout history were often symbolic more than functional. Some were never worn at all, existing solely as emblems of power, lineage, or divine right. But this crown defies the pattern. Records mention it repeatedly, always present at coronations, always set before the monarch, always refusing to sit evenly on any head. An omen, some said. A curse, said others. A liability, said the poor advisers, who always had to pretend nothing unusual was happening. You place your hand on the crystal lid. It doesn't open, not immediately. Instead, the reflection staring back at you distorts, edges bending, face blurring, lantern light smearing across the mirrored surface like melting paint. You lean closer. Your reflection shifts again, this time growing taller, crowned by something that glints faintly. You inhale sharply. The lid unlatches. A cool, almost icy breeze spills out as the lid opens. The crown glows brighter. The pedestal hum intensifies into a low, steady vibration that settles in your bones. You reach for the crown. Your hands tremble, just a little. The metal looks impossibly heavy, but when your fingers close around the base, it lifts easily. Too easily. You expected weight, responsibility, gravity. Instead, the crown is almost buoyant, as if it wants to be held, but only by you, or maybe it wants you to think that. You tilt it slightly. The empty mount at its center catches your lantern light, scattering it into thin, broken rays. Historians still argue whether the missing jewel was ever part of the design, or whether it was stolen, lost, or deliberately removed. Some say the crown rejected rulers until the missing piece was restored. Others claim the crown was meant to remain unworn forever, a reminder that ultimate authority belonged not to people, but to fate itself. You raise the crown slowly. Your heart thuds. Sweat prickles along your palms. You bring it toward your brow. The crown hums louder, then suddenly tilts. A sharp jerk, almost playful. The crown angles itself away from your head. You freeze. "Seriously?" you whisper. "You're picky and dramatic?" Second humor checkpoint. The crown pulses. A glow spreads across its rim, every jewel brightening one by one. The humming deepens into a steady resonance. You raise it again. Slower this time. The crown edges closer, then tilts away again. Not rejection, not dismissal. A test. You lower it, gather your breath, and this time hold it not above your head, but before your heart. The crown's glow softens immediately as though relieved. It leans toward your chest, not your brow. A message forms in your mind, not a voice, not words, an understanding. Power is not worn, it is carried. You exhale shakily. The crown warms, and then, only then, does it rise gently from your hands. It lifts itself, slowly, gracefully, hovering between your palms and your lantern. The glow sharpens, illuminating the vault in a clean golden haze. Your breath stutters, but you don't step back. The crown lowers itself, not onto your head, but back into its cradle. The lid closes softly. The pedestal hum fades. You're left standing there, lantern trembling, unsure whether the crown just taught you a life lesson or filed a formal complaint against monarchy as a whole. You step back. The vault exhales. The dust bowl in the chamber's center stirs violently, silver spirals rising higher than ever before. They twist, whirl, and collapse into a pointing motion toward the final case. A dim glow, soft, shifting, uncertain, pulses from the last pedestal. The final jewel's choice, The last test, the last secret, the last story the vault will show you. You steady your breath. You wipe your palms on your clothes. You step forward. 10 jewels down, 1 crown tested, 1 final choice left to face, and the vault, very quietly, begins to close in around you. You step toward the dim, shifting glow, soft, uncertain, pulsing like a heartbeat that hasn't quite decided whether to quicken or calm. The vault's air contracts around you, wrapping tighter with each step, as if funneling you toward one inevitable destination. Your lantern flickers in nervous spirals, its flame bending away from the pedestal, as though it too understands that this next part isn't just another jewel trial. This is the vault's final judgment, the final jewel's choice. The pedestal is smaller than the others, low, unadorned, carved from plain stone with no runes, no engravings, no dramatic flourishes. Almost humble. The crystal lid above it is lightly frosted, making the jewel inside glow like a candle behind thin ice. You can't quite make out its shape. Just light, soft, warm, pulsing in gentle waves. You pause. Your breath slows. The vault quiets until your heartbeat feels louder than your footsteps. You murmur, "Well, everyone's watching, no pressure." First humor checkpoint, delivered with shaky bravado. The frost on the crystal lid melts instantly. A soft sigh escapes the case like warm air greeting cold. Inside rests a single gemstone, but it's not like the others. It isn't perfectly cut like the sapphire. It isn't polished like the jetstones. It isn't blazing like the diamonds or shifting like the opal. It looks unfinished, raw, as though someone carved only half of it before giving up, or realizing it wasn't meant to be perfected at all. The jewel's surface is a blend of colors, shifting lazily between pale gold, soft green, warm peach, and the faintest hint of blue. The transitions are slow, almost sleepy, and the light it gives off is warm, not intense, not overwhelming, just enough to rest gently in your palms without demanding anything more of you. You touch the lid. It doesn't unlatch, it dissolves. The crystal melts away like mist evaporating under sunlight, leaving the gemstone exposed on the velvet bed. A faint breeze curls upward, not cold, not warm, but balanced, as though the jewel itself is breathing in rhythm with you. You hesitate. Every other jewel reacted the moment you approached, pulsed, glowed, whispered, hummed, shifted. This one remains still, open, waiting, not testing you, not judging, just present. You reach out. The jewel rises before your hand touches it, softly, slowly, like a bubble lifting from water. It floats above the pedestal, turning in gentle circles. Light spills across your hands, your arms, your lantern, the walls. The vault glows softly in response, stone warming slightly, corners brightening. Even the carved lions near the door seem less annoyed for a moment. You breathe out, suddenly calmer than you expect. The jewel draws closer, and then, without warning, it splits, not into shards, not violently, just a soft, natural division like a flower opening its petals. 2 halves, mirror images, each glowing with a different color. One half pulses with soft gold, warm, steady, grounding. The other with pale blue, cool, drifting, contemplative. They circle one another in slow orbit, like twin moons looping through different seasons. You realize, with a strange tightening of your chest, that the jewel isn't showing you a path or a reflection or a warning. It's offering a choice. Historians still argue whether the final jewel existed at all. Some mention rumors of a decision stone hidden in the vault, one that determined whether a ruler was driven by vision or by duty. But archival references are vague. Some suggest the jewel never appeared unless the visitor reached a certain level of understanding. Others insist it was a metaphor created by poets who wanted royalties. As usual, no one agrees. The two halves circle you now. Close, gentle, expectant. The warm half hovers before your right palm, the cool half before your left. You feel something stir in your chest, too quiet to name, but real. The warm half radiates certainty, the sense of stepping forward, choosing boldly, claiming a path because it calls to you. The cool half offers contemplation, patience, space to observe without committing too quickly. Neither is wrong. Both feel strangely familiar. You murmur, "I'm not great at decisions. Ask anyone who's waited for me to pick a restaurant." Second humor checkpoint. The warm jewel brightens in amusement. The cool jewel dims, patient, but mildly judgmental. You reach toward the warm half, then stop. You reach toward the cool half, then stop again. The jewels respond, not by urging one option, but by drawing closer until their lights overlap, forming a third color between them. Soft green, balanced, gentle. A question forms, not in words, not even in thought, but in sensation. Which part of you leads, which part of you follows, and which part needs to rest? You exhale, your shoulders loosen, the vault feels warmer, calmer. You extend both hands, one to each half. The jewels lift into your palms, warmth on one side, coolness on the other. They pulse once, twice, then dissolve into beams of color that entwine around your wrists like soft ribbons before disappearing into your skin. No burn, no shock, just warmth settling inside your chest, where the two lights curl together like sleeping embers. The vault brightens. Every jewel you encountered tonight glows in its case: emerald, sapphire, pearl, ruby, opal, diamond, jet, amethyst, and the crown itself. They pulse once in unison, like a collective nod of acknowledgement. You step back. The pedestal lowers into the floor. The dust bowl settles, and the vault releases a long, quiet breath. Your final trial is complete, but the vault has one last thing to show you. The lions on the door shift their stony paws, subtle, but enough to make your lantern tremble. The air stirs, guiding you toward the passageway. A faint light appears at the stairwell, warmer than lantern light, deeper than moonlight. The vault is ready to let you go. You take one last look at the chamber, at the jewels that judged you, warned you, taught you, reflected you. And then you climb the stairs, the quiet of the vault following you like a soft farewell. You climb the ancient stairs, slowly, lantern held low as the faint, mysterious glow above pulls you upward. Each step feels heavier than the one before, not because the climb is steep, but because the vault refuses to release its grip all at once. Its memory clings to your shoulders like soft dust, reluctant to let you disappear from its story. You keep going, feeling the two quiet lights, the warm and the cool, resting somewhere deep inside your chest, balanced now, breathing with you. The stairwell walls brighten as you ascend, not with torchlight, not with magic, but with something gentler, like dawn pressed thin between layers of stone. The air grows warmer, softer, almost domestic, like stepping from a cellar into a quiet kitchen where someone just finished baking bread. You briefly wonder if the palace ghosts have decided to improve their hospitality. At the top of the stairs, the heavy door stands slightly ajar, just enough to invite you, just enough to warn you. You push it open. The hinges don't groan this time. They sigh, like someone finally relaxing after holding tension far too long. Moonlight fills the corridor beyond, washing over your skin in cool silver. Your lantern flickers, then steadies, now feeling strangely ordinary after everything that's happened. You step into the corridor, half expecting the vault to slam shut behind you in a fit of dramatic flair. It doesn't. Instead, the door closes with slow, deliberate calm. A polite good night, You stand alone in the long hallway, the echoes of old court whispers drifting faintly through the stone. The palace sleeps above you, distant, unaware of the trials happening beneath its floors. You walk forward, feeling the subtle warmth at your wrist, where the final jewel's lights melted into you. Not a mark, not a glow, just a presence, a balanced reminder of certainty and caution, boldness and reflection. As you pass through the moonlit gallery, a memory stirs. The emerald clusters testing warmth, the sapphires whispered confessions, the pearls humming with ocean breath, the ruby's heavy clarity, the opal's candlelit warnings, the star diamond's cosmic cold, the jet diadem's quiet sorrow, the amethyst's mirrored futures, the crown's refusal to be worn, the final jewel's choice, yours, not the vault's. All of them flicker through your mind like pages, turning themselves in a windless library. A mainstream historical fact slides gently into your thoughts. Some palaces kept ceremonial vaults not only for storing treasures, but for reminding rulers, future or current, of the responsibilities, burdens, and mysteries tied to their lineage. The jewels were symbols as much as objects, lessons as much as artifacts. But this vault, the vault feels older than symbolism, older than lessons, older than monarchy itself. Historians still argue whether the vault was crafted as a test for rulers or whether the jewels shaped the monarchy around them. Some insist the jewels are enchanted. Others say the enchantment lies within the people who seek them. Tonight, you became part of that debate, whether you wanted to or not. You stop at a tall window overlooking the moonlit courtyard. The wind outside brushes your cheek, cool and fresh, a startling contrast to the dense subterranean air. You exhale long and slow, fogging the glass slightly. In the faint reflection, you notice something subtle. Your posture is steadier, your shoulders are lower, your expression softer. You look more yourself somehow. A quiet laugh escapes you, your third humor checkpoint. Great. I came in for a midnight stroll and ended up with a thesis in jewel psychology. The moonlight brightens, almost approving. You walk onward, the palace halls stretching ahead like a familiar lullaby after a long journey. Your footsteps soften with each pace. The weight in your chest balances, warmth folding into coolness, coolness wrapped gently in warmth. As you reach the final archway leading back to your chambers, the palace settles around you. No more whispers, no more testing hums, just the soft settling of old stone, like a book closing its cover after the last chapter. You step inside your room, set your lantern down, exhale fully. The vault is silent now, its stories tucked away, its jewels resting, but somewhere deep within your ribs you still feel the faint echo of starlight, ocean breath, quiet grief, emerald heat, and whispered truth, not haunting you, not demanding anything, just existing. A reminder of the night the jewels chose to show themselves, a night you survived, a night you grew through, whether you meant to or not. Your eyelids grow heavy, the room darkens gently, the vault fades to memory, and the palace, patient as always, watches over you as you drift into sleep. And now, let everything soften. Let the corridors fade into a gentle blur, the cool moonlight slip into a pale haze, and the weight of the jewels melt into something feather-light inside you. Breathe slowly, letting the last remnants of the vault's warmth settle deep beneath your ribs. Each inhale softer, each exhale longer. The palace quiets, the night deepens, and the world narrows into the simple comfort of being safe, being still, being exactly where you need to be. Let the glow of those ancient treasures dissolve into darkness, leaving only a quiet hum of peace behind your thoughts. Rest easy now. The story is done and your dreams are waiting.